The sun, a molten gold coin in the azure Galilean sky, began its slow descent toward the western hills. A day that had been filled with fervent energy was now mellowing into the soft hues of evening. For days, Jesus had walked these dusty paths, his voice echoing in synagogues and open fields, his hands bringing solace to the infirm and peace to the tormented. When he had taught about a kingdom not of earthly pomp, but of righteousness and mercy, a realm built on the unshakable foundation of his Father's love. Wherever he went, an ever-swelling river of humanity followed, drawn by an irresistible current of hope. They longed to hear his words, words that felt like cool water on parched souls, to see his works, wonders that defied the rigid laws of nature, and simply to be near the one who brought life, hope, and profound healing. But on this particular day, something extraordinary was poised to unfold, an event that would begin with the smallest and humblest of offerings and culminate in the most breathtaking display of God's boundless abundance. This is the enduring story of how a little boy's simple lunch became a divine feast for thousands, a testament to the fact that in the hands of the Savior, scarcity is an illusion and love is the only true measure. The great crowd, a sprawling tapestry of human need and expectation, had gathered on a grassy slope near the shore. The official count was 5,000 men, but when the women and children were included, the number likely swelled to 15 or even 20,000 souls. They were a sea of faces, weather-beaten fishermen, curious townsfolk, hopeful mothers clutching sick children, and stern-faced men whose hearts were secretly yearning for a king to deliver them. They were all tired, their feet sore from the journey, their bodies hungry from a day spent under the sun, yet their spirits remained eager, unwilling to miss a single moment in his presence. Jesus, standing on a small rise, looked out over the multitude. His gaze was not one of a performer surveying an audience, but of a shepherd beholding his flock. His heart was moved with an overwhelming compassion. He saw not just a faceless crowd, but thousands of individual stories, of quiet struggles, of deep-seated hungers, both of the body and of the spirit. He knew their physical craving for bread, but more profoundly, he understood their spiritual starvation for truth and belonging. In his divine foresight, he already knew the miracle he was about to perform, yet he turned to his disciples, deciding to use this moment as a crucible to test and deepen their faith. The disciples, however, were overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the problem before them. Their perspective was framed by logic and limitation. Philip, ever the pragmatist, did a quick, desperate calculation in his head. "Lord," he said, his voice laced with anxiety, "even if we had 8 months' wages, it would not be enough to buy even a small piece of bread for each one here." 3. Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, chimed in, his gesture of help only serving to highlight their predicament. "There is a young boy here," he said, pointing into the crowd, "who has 5 small barley loaves and 2 little fish. But what is that among so many?" 3. Their words hung in the air, a testament to their human perspective. They saw an insurmountable wall of scarcity, a vast ocean of need with only a tiny droplet of resource. They saw the impossibility of the situation and concluded that the only logical solution was to send the people away. But hidden within that vast crowd was a small boy, perhaps no older than 10, whose mother had packed him a simple rustic lunch that morning. 5 flat, dense loaves made from barley, the food of the poor, and 2 small, salted fish, likely caught from the very sea that glistened beside them. He had listened, enraptured, to Jesus' words all day. When Andrew approached him, a flicker of uncertainty might have crossed his face, but it was quickly replaced by a simple, unhesitating willingness. He was willing to give all he had to Jesus. The boy's offering was beautifully simple. By any human measure, it was laughably inadequate, nothing compared to the gnawing hunger of thousands. Yet when this small, selfless gift was placed in the hands of the Savior, it became the seed of a miracle, a catalyst for the divine. Jesus accepted the meager meal not for its quantity, but for the spirit in which it was given, a spirit of pure, uncomplicated trust. With a calm authority that silenced the murmuring crowd, Jesus instructed his disciples, Have the people sit down in groups on the green grass. An orderliness began to descend upon the chaotic scene as the disciples organized the multitude into companies of 50s and 100s. Then, taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, Jesus lifted them toward heaven. His gaze was one of intimate communion with his Father. He gave thanks, his voice clear and resonant, blessing the simple food. This act was crucial. It was a demonstration that all provision flows from God, that gratitude is the key that unlocks abundance. Then he broke the bread and began to give it to his disciples to distribute. As they moved through the seated crowds, passing out the portions, something truly remarkable, something utterly inexplicable began to happen. The bread and fish did not run out. Basket after basket, piece after piece, there was always more. The disciples would reach into their baskets expecting to find them empty, only to discover them still full. The boy's small meal was transforming, multiplying, becoming a veritable banquet for the thousands who sat in stunned silence. The people ate until they were completely full. Their hunger was not just sated, it was satisfied. No one was left hungry. And when the incredible meal was over, Jesus gave another command: gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted. This was not an afterthought, but a profound lesson in stewardship and the nature of God's generosity. It is overflowing, but never meant to be squandered. The disciples went through the crowd and gathered the leftovers. They filled 12 large baskets with the fragments, far more than the small lunch they had started with. From the depths of scarcity came an astonishing abundance. From one small surrendered gift came an incredible overflow. From a boy's simple faith came a miracle that would echo through eternity. The crowd was utterly astonished. A wave of awe and realization swept through them. They began to say to one another, "Surely this is the prophet who is to come into the world." They had seen with their own eyes the undeniable provision of God, a sign that mirrored God feeding their ancestors with manna in the wilderness. In their excitement, they wanted to seize him then and there and make him their king by force. But Jesus, knowing their hearts and their political ambitions, quietly withdrew from them and went up on the mountain by himself to pray. 11. He had not come to be made a king by popular demand, but to reveal the true nature of the kingdom of his Father, a kingdom entered not through force, but through faith and humility. This miracle is so much more than a historical account of food. It is a living portrait of God's infinite provision, his extravagant generosity, and the exponential power of faith. God sees our needs before we even utter a word. The people were hungry, and he already had a plan to provide for them. He cares deeply for our daily bread, for our physical sustenance, but even more so, he cares for the nourishment of our souls. The boy gave what little he had, 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. It seemed insignificant, yet God took it, blessed it, multiplied it, and used it to bless thousands. This is a timeless principle. What we place in Jesus' hands, no matter how small or inadequate it may seem to us, becomes more than enough in his economy. 12. The disciples saw only scarcity. Their vision was limited by their experience and their resources. But Jesus saw possibility. Where they saw lack, he saw a divine opportunity for faith to be stretched and for his glory to be revealed. And when they finally chose to trust him and obey, they became first-hand witnesses to the impossible. What about you? What do you have in your hands today? Perhaps it seems small, inconsequential. Your limited time, your fledgling talent, a simple act of kindness, your meager financial resources. You may look at the vast needs of the world around you and feel overwhelmed, just as the disciples did. But if you give what you have to God, if you place it in his hands with a heart of faith, he can bless it, multiply it, and use it to touch lives in ways you could never ever imagine. Just as the boy's lunch became a feast for thousands, your small, humble offering, given in genuine faith, can become a miracle in someone's life. The miracle of multiplication is not just about bread and fish. It is about the boundless love of God poured out abundantly for all his children. It is about the profound, life-altering truth that with Jesus, nothing is too small, no one is too insignificant to make an eternal difference. Yes, a little boy's lunch fed a multitude. Because in the hands of Jesus, the ordinary becomes extraordinary. Scarcity is transformed into abundance, and faith, when acted upon, becomes sight. This is the miracle of multiplication. This is the love of God revealed. And this is the Jesus who still provides, still multiplies, and still satisfies the deepest hungers of the human heart today.